Okay, guys, let's start over chapter 11. Chapter 11 is security monitoring. We'll discuss mainly two things. We'll discuss security tools, protocols, and how attackers can exploit the vulnerabilities of security tools and protocols. Then we will discuss some log files, the role of log files. We'll discuss types of log files. We'll discuss endpoint logs and network logs as well. So let's start with the first agenda item, security tools and protocol. And the first security tool is called syslog. Syslog servers or syslogs. Syslogs are basically the messages which are transmitted between a network device and the endpoint. And again, these particular logs are very important from security monitoring and troubleshooting point of view. Attackers can block these messages. They can identify these syslog servers and try to block this communication. So if they want to do any malicious kind of stuff. So in syslog servers, first of all, what is syslog server? What do they do? Syslog servers monitor the event messages. Event messages, like for example, if any kind of anomaly occurs and all that stuff. So they monitor the event messages transmitted or traveling between network point, or you can say network device, and endpoint, or you can say the user computer endpoint. So this is what the syslog servers, what they do. And typically servers listens the syslogs on port number UDP port 514. So it's very important to remember this port number. Attackers, what they can do with the syslog servers, attackers or hackers can target syslog servers to tamper the data, or you can say to tamper the data and block the communication of syslog servers. Because since syslog server, what exactly they do, they monitor the event messages. So if somebody start blocking these syslog messages, what's going to happen, how the network security tools, they can start taking action and all that. Because for example, if the alert message, which resulted in a violation of a security rule, if that particular message got blocked, so automatically syslog server will not get anything. If syslog server will not get anything, automatically the system developer or security consultant, they can't do anything. The second security to the protocol is called NTP. NTP stands for, the full form is Network Time Protocol. And NTP, what exactly it does, it performs clock synchronization between the computer system, like it involves endpoint and network devices connected over the same local area network, or you can say public or packet switched network. Without clock synchronization, there could be desynchronization attack. So the NTP is very important protocol in a network for to avoid delays, jitter, and all that stuff. And all these syslog log messages are time stamped by NTP. So these are timestamped. So again, syslog messages, as I mentioned earlier, these are basically event messages. For example, if any event occurred, like alert, anomaly occurred, or anything like that occurred, so syslog message will be generated by network device, which will be timestamped. And again, after receiving that syslog message, the security administrator, they can take some actions and all that. Uh, Attackers or hackers can hackers can actually block the syslog messages, plus temper the NTP for desynchronization attack and DDoS attacks. Next is the third thing that we're going to talk about is another protocol that we use in network. It is the HTTP and HTTPS. HTTP, as I believe everybody is well familiar with HTTP. First of all, communication is plain text communication. It is plain text communication plus it can be sniffed plus modified. And other than that, for example, if we use HTTP protocol, and let's say if a web server is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting mean, let's say for example, if a server is vulnerable, attackers, they can actually post a comment, they can actually upload iframe, their own code, JavaScript. Whenever anybody visit this particular server, if they click that link or iframe, the malicious software can be downloaded on their computer. So let's say if server is cross-site scripting, then attackers can inject iframe. We'll talk about iframe in our lab. And once iframe loads, then malware can be downloaded on victim's computer, which is basically user-side attack. Other than that, as you know, in HTTPS, we actually adds another layer of security, using SSL, secure socket layer. Next is the fourth part. It's the fourth is the email protocols. We already talked about email protocols, I believe. We already talked about SMTP. We talked about POP3. We already talked about IMAP. So all these protocols are used for email formatting, uploading, and downloading. But for example, especially in the case of worms, they can take control of the TCP/IP protocol to spread. So basically, attackers can use email protocols for spreading of malware. So attackers, especially the worm malicious software, it can take control of the user's inbox without knowing username and password, and they can send email from your account. The fifth one, another network protocol, it's basically ICMP, Internet Control Messaging Protocol. And ICMP protocol, as you know, there are two main traits of ICMP protocol. One is ping, second is trace route. And as you know, with the ping and ICMP, people can launch DOS attack or Smurf attacks. IP impersonation attack, Smurf attack, if you guys remember. Next is the basically security tools, security technologies. One of the security technologies, access control list, ACL. And if you guys remember, ACL is very simple to understand. In access control list, what exactly happens? Let's say this is my main server, and I just want to control the access of this particular server. I just want only legitimate people to access this. What we can do is we can actually maintain an access control list here. We can put IP addresses of legitimate people, their MAC addresses, and then we can actually put their port numbers as well. So if anybody, let's say this person wants to access this server, so first of all, it has to satisfy access control list. And then if his IP address, MAC address, and port numbers are listed here, then he will be allowed to access the server, otherwise not. And as you remember, access control list is not the definite solution. With access control list, what can happen? Attackers can determine which IP addresses, MAC addresses, and ports are allowed by ACL. And then attacker can craft packets based on that information. And then of course, access control list, they have to allow it. For example, if attacker is starting sending the data on those particular IP addresses. Next is the load balancers. Load balancers. Load balancers are used to avoid the DOS attack, DDoS attack and DOS attack mainly. What happens, let's say this is the website xyz.com. So rather than actually running this website only one computer, one server, we actually run it on multiple servers. And let's say each server can handle 5,000 user or 5,000 queries at a time. So what happens actually, this is let's say load balancer. If let's say if this particular server is full with all 5,000 user and we have let's say 20,000 requests or let's say 5,000 more requests are coming in. So if this particular server is fully occupied, if these 5,000 requests will actually direct to the web server, so what will happen? Load balancer knows that which server is full and which is not full. Then it will redirect those requests to other services. So just to balance the load rather than to avoid the DOS attack. So what will be the definition of load balancer is going to be depending upon the load on the server, the load balancer direct the traffic to other servers. Okay. The typical definition of load balancer is basically single IP address, simple IP address transaction being represented by, like website is same, but it is represented by multiple IP addresses. So this is about the first task. The second task, in log file, there are mainly three types of log files. Firstly we'll talk about some types of log files, then end device logs and network logs. In types of log files, we'll discuss mainly three types of log files. First is called the alert data. Second is session and transaction data. And the third one is called full packet capture. In end device, we'll talk about the host logs, the host local computer log, in fact, then server logs, syslog that we already talked about. And in server log, we'll discuss IIS logs, Internet Information Service log, and Apache log. In network log, there are mainly three things. First is called TCP dump. Secondly, we'll talk about network flow protocol. And third is called the visibility, or you can say the GUI based application visibility and control, visibility and control of application. And we use Cisco products for visibility and control of the traffic, in fact. So let's start with the first one, alert data and session and transaction data. Alert data, the first type of log file. Alert data is basically a messages generated by intrusion prevention system or intrusion detection system in response of in the response of the traffic which violates a rule of a firewall, or security rules, or matches with existing exploit. This is called alert data. It can be generated by any intrusion detection system or intrusion prevention system. Next is the session or transaction data. So session data is basically, first of all, let me define session data. Session data is basically a record of conversation between network points, like network devices. And for example, it could be session ID, and it is like session duration. While transaction data is basically the messages transmitted during that session. So it holds the details. Then full packet capture, full package capture. Packet capture is basically, you can say it's the complete detail of a packet. Details of the packet, like the source IP address, destination IP address, HTML page, etc., etc. Now endpoint logs. Endpoint logs are basically host log. Host log is basically logs of the local computers. So if you want to pull the local computer the logs in Microsoft Windows, there is a software called Event Viewer. We can use Event Viewer. I'll show you in our lab how you can use Event Viewer to pull the local computer logs. Syslog we already talked about. Server logs are basically, it defines like just to see who has accessed the server and used services. So just for error detection and correction. Okay, so this is just event log, type of logs, endpoint logs, and next, as we discussed, is the network logs. Network logs. For network logs, the first tool is Tcp Dump. Tcp Dump is basically a tool that comes with Linux, especially with the Kali Linux. We're going to use it in our lab. So it is basically a real-time packet capturing tool. It's a very simple. If you open your Kali Linux command prompt, or the hyperterminal, just type Tcp Dump, it will start capturing the packet, just like the Wireshark, but basically it doesn't have any GUI, unlike the Wireshark. Another tool or protocol that we use in network log is called network flow. Basically, the network flow is specifically designed for, this is a protocol for network troubleshooting and session based accounting. And what it can monitor the traffic. It can monitor the traffic loads. It can monitor the you can say network users, peak usage, and routing, like how the packet is being routing along. Another device, or you can say another tool that we for the network to capture the network log is called application visibility and control, AVC. So it's the Cisco device through which we can we can actually, it's Cisco device through which we can actually have a GUI based application monitoring. It's Cisco AVC, the device called Cisco AVC, application visibility and control. So it's a GUI based application monitoring plus traffic load. So we can actually monitor the application, like for example, if there is a specific application running on different network devices, by using AVC, we can see the load of application, what kind of traffic is being transmitted and all that stuff on that. Last is basically the content filtering log, content filter log. And there are two main devices through which we can put a filter. We can actually we can collect the information. We can actually put a specific filter on the traffic coming from internet, and those devices are, it's the email security appliance, Cisco ESA. It is basically Cisco ESA, through which you can actually what it will do, we can set a content filter on all over organization email, and automatically we will receive only the email or having malicious free or which does not have any kind of malicious content. Other than that, we have a web security appliance, again Cisco if WSA. For example, if there is any web application, so we can secure or protect that particular web application by using Cisco WSA. It can avoid your web application against cross-site scripting, against SQL injection attack, against directory traversal attack, and all those kind of web application attacks. So see you guys in our online class.